All right, we're live. How's it going, Kitnel?
Awesome. I'm doing pretty good considering. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm sick. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm all
Mm.
congested. Kind of got some sinus headache stuff going on. I'm on a lot of drugs. Just the drugs, cold drugs. Not anything. You get the
Sure.
joke. Anyway.
Yeah, I gotcha. Seems to be going around. Everyone at my work is also sick, so.
Yeah, I feel like I've been sick so many times this year. It's been terrible. It's been more sick than any other year that I can remember.
Oh, geez, that's never good.
No, no, but it is what it is. I'm here. The show must go on.
Right.
Okay. So cool, cool, cool. We're here to talk about your activism, and
Yeah,
yeah. So I guess if you want to start off, and you can either tell me maybe a little bit about yourself, and we can get into the activism.
sure. I am my name. Sorry, I got slightly distracted. So my name's Kitnel. I am a just like an internet browser of sorts, not like the one you type into, but the person who does so. Um, and then
Google or Firefox?
right now I use Opera.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
I see you're a person of
And
culture.
then yes, I like Opera, and I also will use Chrome if Opera doesn't work with something. Um,
Mhm.
um, but mainly like activism related. Hopefully, I don't say Activision here later. But
I probably will.
yeah, I've done it a couple times already throughout the week. But in terms of that, like I go in, I talk with people, and I try to give my perspective and arguments.
Cool. Okay.
And hopefully here soon. The idea is to also go out and, uh, you know, rallies, gatherings, community building, all that stuff. So just a
Hmm,
quick little synopsis.
cool. Are these you said talk with people. Are these conversations usually like one on one, or is it like a group setting?
Yeah, so the types of conversations I get into typically are group conversations. Sometimes they're one-on-one. Excuse me, and a lot of the times they're dog piles, particularly on me, because I go into hostile spaces a lot of the time. Um, Not every day. It's too much to keep up with every day, but you know, I'm pretty used to the blood sports in some fashion.
Hmm, okay. What's the setting for these? Is it online, in person?
Currently, and historically with me in the past, it's been online only.
Okay.
Um, I have not taken part in any serious like in person like chalks, chats, whatever you want to call them. I hope to change that here soon.
Okay. Cool. Um, so is it mostly like Discord servers, or is it
Discord servers. Um, I get into lots of kerfuffles in Facebook. Still, I still have a Facebook. I'm ancient. Um,
yeah.
and you know, when I still used it a lot, um, mainly for my channels, uh, X or Twitter. Um, and we'll see where it goes from there. But those are the platforms I normally did it. YouTube comments. I'm pretty good at picking fights in YouTube comments. Fights. Some of them are fights. Some of them are, talks. But
Yeah. And is this a text medium or a voice video chat? What are we talking here?
um, I do both. Obviously, like YouTube comments, like that's going to be text based, right? No way to
Mm-hmm.
video chat with your commenters, which is probably
Right.
for the better. Um,
Oh,
depends. Oh yeah, I guess TikTok is also a place that I've gone to before,
Mm,
which that can be both, really. Text and there can be video calls and stuff. Like people have
gotcha.
stages very similar to like this. And
Okay.
sorry, I just heard my phone. Let me mute that so it doesn't interrupt us. There we go.
Okay. So lots of different
It just
mediums
depends.
here.
Yeah, yeah. Nothing serious in person yet. I'll run into the occasional person. We'll end up chatting.
Okay. And
But
that would be
mostly
just like
online.
happenstance.
Yeah, it's mostly happenstance, or like if I'm wearing something that like it's like, oh, you're blah blah blah, and then it's like, oh yeah, yeah, and then we get into a chat about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
Usually respectful when it turns into a chat, but that's not always the case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think you set a little stage for this. I think I understand, how we're at least the medium here. So
Yeah,
that's important context, I think. How do these conversations usually go?
depends on the conversation and the medium that we're in. Um, so usually with my style of conversation, I'm pretty like by the books, like fact based. Logic, reason, science is most of it. But that's not all of it. I'm
Mhm.
pretty I'm still learning, but I like to incorporate a bit of philosophy and stuff into how I think about the world, what I believe, and then I incorporate that into my activism. You know, um, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And what about the result of these conversations at the end?
Mm,
Are you satisfied with how they go usually?
we got to describe satisfied. I think
Okay.
in that regard. Most of the time, do I think that the conversations necessarily go well? It kind of depends on what metric you're judging it by, right?
Hmm.
Was I most of the time am I able to convince someone of the opposition? No, I don't think that went well, right? I think that's a majority of the content, so to speak, right? Um,
Okay.
it's very hard to change people's minds, especially with something so uh, ingrained in people's minds, something so that can be so vitriolic in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Um, so in a lot of ways, I think most conversations don't go the way that we really want them to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably true for a lot of people in a lot of conversations. Yeah. And you're an activist, and you kind of just stated this, but I'm going to confirm. Your goal
Sure.
is to change people's minds, then.
My goal is to change people's minds. Yes, I take a strong position.
Okay. Um, why is it important to change people's minds?
So it kind of depends on the minds that we're trying to change, right? Um, like I want to change my family's mind, the ones that are not currently on the trans side specifically. I want to convince them so that we can have healthier relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I want to change my neighbors' opinions and stances, so that way we can live better, live in peace, and get along with each other. And particularly when it comes to politicians, right? I want to change the politicians' minds so that way we can get the equal rights that we desire. So it depends
Mm-hmm.
on who the audience is.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's admirable goals, and yeah, it changes depending on the audience. I understand that. Okay. The first thing you said that was healthier relationships,
Yeah.
and that it sounds like that might. I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it just because it was the first thing you said. Maybe it's not the most
Yeah.
important, but is it the most important?
Um, in my personal life, I would say it is probably one of the more important ones.
Mm-hmm.
Most I'm not sure about. I'd probably have to think about that a little bit more.
Sure.
But I want, I just like anyone else, I want healthy relationships with my family, with my friends.
Yeah. Either way, it's on the list, and it's probably towards the top. Sounds like.
Yeah, it's up
Okay.
there, I would say.
It's up there.
Um,
Cool.
as a as someone an activist, my main goal is to make sure that the main goal is to convince people so that we can have the equal rights as any other person in the country that we live in, right?
Mm. Yeah, I think that
So
I think
I
that
would
makes
say as an
sense.
activist, when I'm taking an activist role, that's the goal.
Hmm. Okay. And when you're in a more personal setting, the healthier relationships might be more important in that moment.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can be.
Cool.
Yeah. It could also, when it comes like voting time, you know, I also want to convince them for the same reasons that I'm convinced, right? So,
Sure.
but in some cases, I would say a healthier relationship with my family might be more important.
Sure. Do you think that a healthy relationship is possible without changing their mind?
That's a good question. It depends what the position is, I think.
Okay. Can you give an example?
Yeah. Yeah, like if someone if someone's not convinced that I should have the same health care that they have access to, I would say we can't see eye to eye.
Hmm. And healthcare, do you mean like that can mean a few different things?
Sure.
Um, Want to elaborate just a little bit, just so I have an understanding?
Um, it kind of I guess it depends what I mean, what you mean, right?
Hmm.
Trying to maybe can you clarify a little bit better, or not better, but
Yeah,
more for me?
like I guess healthcare could just mean like seeing a doctor, period, end of story. It could mean like access to medication. It could mean access to medical procedures like surgeries.
Right. So there are intersecting like pieces to this as well. Like I don't think our healthcare system, at least in this country, is good for anyone. I
Mm,
think there's massive reforms and changes that should be done. Um, and I'll bring that up during my talks, activism, whatever.
hmm.
Um, but my main goal would be to convince people that I at least deserve the same autonomy over my health decisions that anyone else does.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I think everybody wants that autonomy. I could
Mhm.
see that. Yeah, like I don't think it matters whether you're trans, cis, an alien. I think we all. Sorry, alien is kind of like a trope with me. So, anyways,
No, you're
um,
good.
um, yeah, I think we all want that. I think that's something that might be universal. I don't think anyone wants to relinquish autonomy. At least I'd be very surprised to learn if anybody did want to relinquish that autonomy.
I would say in terms of like healthcare.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I relinquish my autonomy for, like I don't want to go out and just like off a bunch of people, right? Because I think that'd be wrong. But in terms of like healthcare, I don't
healthcare
think,
autonomy.
yeah, healthcare is exactly.
Right. Okay. What's the strategy for uh, changing people's minds that believe? I guess their belief would be that you don't deserve healthcare autonomy. Is that their belief?
That depends who you talk to. But yeah, a lot of the opposition that I do get is people thinking that I shouldn't have certain access to certain drugs or surgeries.
Hmm, okay.
Um, because of their own personal beliefs as well, whether that's based off of feelings, the Bible, whatever it may be.
Okay. And how do we how can someone go about changing someone's mind on this, or what has your strategy been so far?
Well, generally, my strategy, like I said in the beginning, was fact-based, science-based, logic-based, reason, right?
Okay.
That doesn't mean that like emotional appeal can't come into it at all. Doesn't mean like any interpersonal relationships or anything like that doesn't apply in any sense. But that is the main strategy that I try to employ.
Just one moment. I think, yeah, I technically forgot to start the event in Discord, so I'm gonna actually officially start
Oh,
it
did
now.
you?
Yeah,
Oh no.
it's okay. There was plenty of people here anyway. Um, okay. So yeah, the
Yeah, there's a lot of people in here.
fact-based. There's a lot of people. Fact-based. If you want to just go over that one more time, you said fact-based, something about
Fact,
emotional appeal.
fact, yeah, fact. So my main strategy is you know fact, science, logic based. Uh, you know, backing for what I
Got it.
believe in. Doesn't mean
Okay.
that, like I said, doesn't mean that emotional appeal doesn't come into it at all. Doesn't mean that philosophy will just completely stay out of it.
Hmm.
There's times there's times for each of these to come up, and it kind of depends on where the conversation goes with each individual person or each group we're talking to, because each, you know, our values are going to either agree with or conflict with other people's values, and we got to figure out where that is. And if we have the goal of changing people's minds, how are we going to do that and which strategies are going to work, be effective, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I wonder with this healthcare discussion and healthcare autonomy is really what it's about. I'm wondering how the science or the logic or the fact-based part might impact that. And I'm going to do a little bit of messaging here. I'm going to kind of tell you my perspective. You can tell me
Sure.
if you agree or you disagree. Feel free to
Okay.
disagree. We have
Okay.
like we have, I think, what it would be called as a normative claim, right? This person should or should not receive the medical autonomy, the healthcare autonomy, right?
Sure.
Um, and I think that basically comes from some sort of value, a value judgment. And I suppose maybe someone can look at some sort of facts somehow, somewhere in there. There might be some facts in there. Not sure where. I think it might come down to mostly like, what's the right word? Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? Like to me, it seems more like a human to human universal kind of need, like a philosophy kind of sort of thing, rather than just this like you view this fact and that fact will change your mind on
Hmm.
this issue, right?
Oh,
You kind of
I
get what
I
I'm
think I know.
saying?
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at. I'm trying to remember the word for it as well. um, some people might say it's spiritual, I guess, if I'm
Spiritual.
tracking correctly.
I don't think that's a word I personally would use, but I mean,
Okay.
it could
Maybe
be
I'm
a word
misunderstanding
that
then.
it's like, hmm. Yeah, I mean, think I would just use the word value. I think it would be something
Just value.
somebody has an importance for. Yeah, someone
Yeah.
someone might value healthcare autonomy for all, or they might not value that. Um, I'd be really
Sure.
interested in into why they would not value that. 'Cause I think that's something that I value for everybody. I think everybody should be able to have, make up their own mind as to what they want to do with their body.
Right. I mean, I agree with that. The people will value different things for many different reasons. And that's definitely a discussion where it kind of gets down to it a lot of the time. If you if you can get down to the core of what people believe in, a lot of it is they value something. What is it they value and why? Is my question a lot of the time.
Hmm.
Do they value bodily autonomy? Why or why not? Do you value people to have free expression of themselves? Why or why not?
I like those questions. Are those questions you would use in your activism?
Yeah, I find
Cool.
myself asking that quite a lot, so long as the conversation can get to that point, right? Because you know, a lot of conversations have a lot of baggage that you just start with, and then kind of not deconstructing in the sense that you're like, okay, let's just completely forget about all your values, but let's dig and see like where that value is actually coming from, right?
I love that. Yeah. That's what I try to do in my conversations. I try to ask people, you have this value. What's underlying it? Where did this come from? Why do you have it? Why do you hold on to it? Is there anything that you could learn that would have you discard it? Or anything that you could learn that could pick up a new value that might be in conflict with it? Um,
Mhm. And that
yeah.
becomes interesting when you get down into deep conversations a lot of the times. Like you might even find, and I've had it happen to me plenty of times, where it's like I have two values that are directly in contradiction or very closely contradict each other, and it's like, okay, how do I handle that? Right.
Yeah.
But I think this is just my personal experience and opinion on the matter is I don't think a lot of people are prepared to deal with that.
Hmm. Does that mean we shouldn't ask the questions or no?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not.
Still
I
ask it.
think it should. Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile question to ask, whether someone is prepared to deal with it or not.
Okay.
It can be very frustrating, um, for anyone who is feeling that, right? Or realizing like, wait, I've got these two conflicting values,
Right.
and then like, where are they conflicting? Like, it's a whole process of trying to figure out what's going on, what needs to change, if anything. The contradiction okay with each individual people, because that happens sometimes too, where they're just like, yeah, I'm fine with the contradiction. It doesn't bother me at all. And then it just blows my mind because it matters to me a lot, right? So,
Okay. So we've been talking about autonomy in healthcare in relation to, healthier relationships. And it sounds like you want a healthy relationship, but one of the boundaries might be they have to value like you having a healthcare autonomy and potentially maybe universal healthcare autonomy. I mean, would that also apply or would it just be specifically yours?
I think in order to be consistent, I think universal health care autonomy, at least equality under the law, is the goal.
Okay. Okay.
Whether each individual person in each individual case like agrees with that or has an issue with that in uh in and of itself, or for whatever things that they value, as we're talking about, that's something that they have to deal with. But I think the goal, like I said, as an activist, my goal is equality under the law.
Hmm. Okay. Is there anything else aside from healthcare autonomy that would also be like a deal breaker?
Oh, uh, um, I mean that's a pretty big one in my opinion. But um, I think also just general discrimination in the workplace, like things that we need to like live in, like we have to have these things and able to live in the society that we live in. So like if I'm just denied a job simply for who I am or anyone is, um, and people can just do that, like, I think that's a problem. Um, I
Yeah.
am pretty okay with merit-based hiring or skills,
Hmm.
just so that we can, have functioning jobs and workplaces and stuff like that. But
Right.
I think that in terms of like trans identity or any other like form of identity, like it's irrelevant. So I think
Okay.
just any discrimination in that degree just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on board with you there. I don't think discrimination, uh, especially in the workplace, but probably just about anywhere. And I mean, I can't really think of discrimination ever being a good thing. But yeah, definitely, especially in the workplace, I don't think that's. Yeah, that came out weird. You know what I meant, though. I'm pretty sure. Um, I mean, I don't think. I think it would always be a negative thing. I can't imagine. I can't imagine a scenario in which it would be not negative, double negative there. But
Not
um,
negative.
yeah, no, yes, negative. You discrimination is bad. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I think I agree with that. I can't think of a reason why I would disagree with that.
um, getting back to the healthier relationships. If you had a really healthy relationship with someone, and one of these things, either one, discrimination or the healthcare autonomy, if you found out one of their beliefs was not in alignment with yours, do you think that that relationship, you think it could continue, or would it be an absolute no go?
So at least with me, my first go-to will be to have a chat, have a discussion, and maybe even a debate if it goes that way, um, about our positions. You know, and I think that in terms of the ultimate, not the ultimate, maybe that's a weird word. In terms of our conclusions, like it may be worth setting that boundary, and the healthy relationship just isn't a possibility, right?
Okay. Like the relationship at all isn't possible, or just like you can't talk about that
Not
subject?
not a well. I do know that there are people who can just disregard the entire subject, and if that works for them, and that's what they want, that's fine. If we're talking about me, um, I don't have any patience anymore for that stuff. Maybe that's just because I'm getting older. And you know, ultimately, and especially in this day and age, it also affects the way people vote, and for me, it would hurt to try to have a respectful, loving relationship with someone who would just vote against someone's rights. So, in a lot of ways, at least for me, that's just a no-go for me.
Okay.
But I do know other people who make that work.
Okay. So it's possible, but that might be a boundary that you personally set, just for sake of comfort, maybe? Is comfort the right word?
Comfort's part of it. Safety is another part of it.
Okay. Okay.
Mental health is a big deal, right? So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it being um oh, what's the right word? Difficult to have a relationship with someone with opposing views that could potentially they could advocate for things that would impact your quality of life.
mhm,
Yeah. Okay.
definitely.
That's kind of what it comes down to, right? Like I'm understanding you correctly, right?
I think so. Can you repeat and rephrase just one more time just to make
Yeah.
sure I understood?
like I said, like having a relationship with someone who could potentially make decisions like voting, for example, which could ultimately impact your quality of life. Um, it would be difficult to maintain a relationship with said person because of that.
I think so, yes.
Okay. All right.
At least for me. I know other people are capable of doing so. I've seen it.
Sure. So we talked about one of your goals, which was healthier relationships. Um, I think the other one you mentioned, like politicians, and probably like influencing how people vote, like general people, not necessarily people who you're trying to have relationships with. And I think the goal is different in that scenario. You're not necessarily
Oh, yeah.
trying to improve the relationship. You are trying to change their minds, if I'm understanding correctly. Um,
When it comes to politicians, there's a few aspects to it. To some degree, there is a relationship between the politician and their voter base, right?
mhm.
But that's going to depend on what it is. So it's really hard to talk about this without really getting into the weeds of politics.
Mm,
Um, some of it is definitely talking to your representatives, voting in new representatives who don't align with you, because that's what they're there for. They're there to vote on policies and create laws and stuff, or whatever the case may be, based off of the population that votes for them.
mhm.
So we're all like really weird because politics isn't necessarily my strongest suit, even though I'm kind of talking about it, still learning a bit. But I think that say it. We all influence each other in some degree,
I agree.
but I think in this particular case that we have a good strong case for why the rights that we are fighting for should be the case. Does that make sense? I feel like I kind of lost the train a little bit there.
Maybe. I mean, I think I understood what you said. I don't even remember the question I
Okay.
asked, so it very well may have answered it.
Yeah, I may have rambled a little bit. My bad.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. You're fine. You're good.
It's a
Um,
what I'm trying to get at is it's difficult like to judge exactly like how you should approach something in terms of like interacting with the politicians specifically.
okay.
Um, there's ways to do it. There's ways to like draw them to your side, but it's going to be like interpersonal in some way. And then when we talk about like just groups of people, um, it's going to be what's the word? Just group influence. Maybe that's not the right word either. Help me
Mm.
out. Help me out, chat.
Maybe instead
Yeah,
we
I
can
know what I'm
talk
trying to
about.
say, but I don't think I have the wordage to be able to talk about it correctly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no worries. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down, anyways.
Sure.
Since you do value, you like to have one-on-one
I
conversations.
val-
It sounds
I
like
value.
value. Um,
Yeah, value.
when we first started off, I was trying to figure out how you're going about your activism. It sounds like you do a lot of one-on-one, sometimes in groups, mostly online. Uh, and it sounds like you do a little bit on Discord and voice. Um, with regards to that, and I assume you would mostly in there, your goal wouldn't be necessarily building a healthy relationship. I mean, maybe you can tell me if that is, but I think most of the time that would be changing people's minds when you're like in a voice chat in Discord, right?
Right. So I'm in a bunch of different discords for many different um this happens to be one of the more important ones for me. But when I'm in like a Discord channel, like trying to argue for my position, like I want to come at this as a good faith conversation with like a healthy outcome. That's not always possible. In fact, I find it to be rare for that to happen. You know what I mean?
I may not have tracked that last part. I
Oh,
apologize.
sorry. My goal in Discord conversations is to try to change people's minds. It could be also to make my point and nothing more than that. I think
Okay.
ultimately what I would like is to have a more healthy relationship with whatever group or people I'm talking with, but I think that's not possible all the time.
Hmm. I
I
like
don't
that.
even think it's possible most of the time, but that is
Hmm.
definitely a goal I definitely wish for.
I think you might be unique in that to some degree. I think a lot of
I might be.
people, especially on Discord, not everybody. There's a lot of great people on Discord, don't get me wrong. Um, but a lot of people don't necessarily value that relationship aspect. They a lot of times, even people who are kind of in the kind of the debate scene, I guess you could say. Um, there's no first or second gear. It's like,
Yeah.
really intense debate.
Yeah. If
And,
you
and
would
it,
like to talk about that at some point, I am pretty big into debate scene, but we can leave that for
really,
later.
okay. Does that impact your
I am,
activism?
unfortunately. Oh, of course it does.
Hmm, interesting.
It's not my main venue that I go for, but I have been, that's where I kind of started was in the debate scene.
Okay. It seems to me you don't seem much of a debater, and maybe I'm
Oh no, I think I'm
reading you
terrible at it.
wrong. Okay.
So,
All right. So you've cut. Sounds like you've gone down a. It sounds like you do both, but you've kind of gone down this alternate path, which I kind of like the
yeah,
alternate path. Not gonna lie, I kind of dig it. And
yeah. Um,
why'd you go
I
down that path?
well, I started down the path
Hmm.
because it seemed at the time it seemed the only way to be able to get my point and other people's points across to each other. Excuse me. Um, it just was kind of like the thing at the time, right? You know, mid 2000s, early 10s. It just kind of was like the scene and still kind of is the scene. It's still ongoing, right? So it's
Hmm.
just kind of a situation I kind of just jumped into. Like, blood sports on YouTube was like the thing and even on Twitch. It might still be going on. I don't know. I don't pay attention to that much anymore personally. Sure as heck get into it sometimes in Discord, but but that's just kind of like where I came from. And I was in a couple of YouTube, not YouTube, Discord channels that it was very big. Um, and I still jump myself into the deep end of the pool sometimes. Just to be like, oh yeah, I can handle this. I've got the bandwidth for it today. And then sometimes I just don't. Sorry,
Sure.
I know I kind of rambled a little bit there.
No worries. Which do you think achieves your goal more effectively? Either the debate or the more centered conversation, I suppose you could say.
For me, I think a more centered conversation is the ideal.
Yeah, I, I think so too. I think that usually works out. Why do you think that?
Well, partially it's for my own like mental space and health.
Hmm.
Um, it can be difficult to be in like fight mode all the time for me.
Yeah, I
I
think
think it's
that.
it's just, as simple as that. Like sometimes I feel up to it, most of the time I
Hmm,
don't. I find value in both of them. It kind of depends on what mood I'm in.
gotcha. If you were to put your I mean, obviously, your mental health is super important. Take care of that, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if you were to put that aside and just concentrate on which is more effective at your goal, which would be like changing people's minds, would one
Mm.
be more effective than the other, do you think?
It depends on the audience. I think when we're talking about I think I think when we're talking about like large groups of people, talking about the science or the facts or however you want to label these things, um, I think it's less effective, in at least in my perspective and my outcomes that I've had so far. Versus like if I have a smaller like either group or individual person to talk to, where if we can have measured, more controlled responses or chats, I think it's just more effective to have that sort of conversation in that environment.
Mhm.
Um, it depends on your goal. Not everyone has the same goal I do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And that's fine. I have my place in my activism and they have theirs.
mhm. Yeah. I guess that's why I was asking specifically, like, towards achieving the goal of changing people's minds. Um, hmm.
I think I do think that conversation usually like if people are up for a conversation, they're ready to hear you out and at least give you a fair shake versus like a debate. There's like sort of like the sport involved with it, right? Um, which can be fun, but I don't think it depends on what's going on. I know I say that a lot, but it kind of depends on what's going on. Debate has
Mm,
its place and can be definitely useful. Um, conversation is where I thrive in a lot more.
okay. Yeah. So, like, I think what you're describing, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading between the lines a little bit too much. In a more centered conversation, perhaps both parties are ready to understand each other and
Yeah,
be in a mindset where they're able to understand the message a little bit better versus a debate. They might be concentrated on like gotchas or undermining the other person's argument or making a point or scoring points, and they might not be able to hear that message as well.
I think. Well, like if we're talking about like Discord debate or even formal debate, like you've got the two sides. You got you know one versus the other, but the core part of that discussion or debate is going to be the audience. You know, who's who's going to convince the audience more
Mm,
of their position. Also, there could be different goals going on inside each of their heads as well, right?
right, right.
Like, do I want to make this person look ridiculous? Do I want to just, you know, point by point by point go through every single topic? Do I want to make emotional appeals? You know, maybe there's a combination of all these things going on.
Okay.
um, debate is definitely it's a interesting art that I've watched for a long time, and I still have a hard time following it.
Okay. If there was a way to improve the quality of understanding on both sides of a conversation, not so much a debate. Do you think that's something that would be important for you?
Can you restate the beginning of the question again? Sorry.
Yeah. If there was a way to increase understanding on
Mm.
one or both sides, people involved in this particular conversation, You think that'd be something that would be important to you in your activism?
I think it would be. And I think
Okay.
that's achievable between individuals. I think that's definitely something that we can talk about and explore and figure out, right? Um, when it comes to like more mass like group discussions, that becomes much, much more difficult.
Mm. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Um, what about, I mean, like you got individuals. What about if you take these conversations, record them, and make them public so you reach more people? Is that kind of a
Hmm.
way to broaden the scope of just those one-on-ones?
That's definitely something I've thought about doing. And
Okay.
I see value in that. Um, I haven't I haven't been in a position to do that like in my personal life necessarily or even on Discord, but it's definitely something I've thought about and something I think Twitch would allow for. Like, or any other streaming platform where I can have whoever I want on would allow for that sort of content.
Cool. Yeah, that's kind of what I do. So I might have a biased. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself an activist, but I kind of do something like that. So um, yeah, I'm biased towards doing that. Maybe you could see
Yeah.
that bias, but
Yeah. You got
with
you got this.
regards to increasing the understanding in those conversations,
Sure.
what has I mean, you kind of described your strategy maybe a little bit. It sounded like you were asking really good, open-ended questions. Is there is there anything else that is to it that you found valuable with your strategy for, having these conversations and increasing understanding?
Um, that's a hard question for me, I think. Um, I'm not sure is my answer to that really. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, that's fine to be unsure. You mind if I say what I think might be beneficial?
Sure.
I think that what's really important in these conversations, and something that I've learned like several different ways, and it's been called different things a whole bunch of different times. Some people like to just call it rapport and leave it at that. I think that's a
Sure.
little bit too short, selling it too short. I don't think that's all that's to it, although that's important, right? Um, but I think there's more to it than that, and I think it's creating a environment where someone is comfortable being vulnerable. I think having conversations about topics like this, if if both parties don't have a level of vulnerability, I think they lose all substance. It becomes a debate about, well, in my opinion, kind of nonsense. It becomes like, here's a point. It's not really what I convinced me, right? That's not what convinced me. It's what I think will be convincing to you or the audience or whoever. But I think if we
Sure.
really become vulnerable, we're able to explore it on this deeper level, a deeper level that's like really, really important, and it could change our minds. And I think to achieve that, I think we need to create, and people are going to misinterpret this. So I'm going to try to explain it the best way I can.
No worries.
Like psychological safety, and I don't mean like a safe spot. I don't mean comfort. These conversations can be really uncomfortable, right? Because they're
Yeah.
they're about who we are and how we interact with each other. And I don't mean comfort, and I mean safety in the sense of like you're not going to be shouted down. You're not going to be scolded for being vulnerable, right? Um, and I think that's how we progress with these conversations and make them as high quality as possible and actually get to the root cause of the things we believe. And I think that's when when communication starts, is when we're vulnerable. Until
Yeah,
then, we're just talking past each other.
sure. I I think in most I think in most interpersonal cases that this is the healthy approach. This is the way to go.
Hmm.
Um, and there's all sorts of ways we could look at like how online interactions people happen. You know, there's interpersonal interactions with people that you don't know, like go a completely different way. And then there's this line that we have that is like, okay, well, where does the constructive conversation start, and then where does it end, and when is defending yourself like the appropriate action, right?
What do you
I
mean
think
by
this is very
defending yourself?
defending.
Yeah, defending yourself. Like when I first heard you say that, I immediately went like physical, like you're gonna fight and
Sure.
defend yourself.
No, no, no.
I assume
I'm
that's not.
talking.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking like conversational, rhetorical, um, all these things that
Mm,
we've talked about so far. When like, yeah, I'm definitely not talking about physical at the moment.
I assumed. Yeah.
But um, like when is it appropriate to go like, I don't think this is constructive anymore, and I think you're actually causing harm,
Mm,
and I think that's an important distinction to make as we have these conversations.
okay. So.
So once harm starts coming out, and this is going to be something that each person, like, we're going to have different values, right? Which is what we kind of started this off with.
Mhm,
Um, it's going to start becoming an argument, not not necessarily an unneeded one or a bad one, but it's going to become a topic of discussion that we have to resolve somehow, right?
mm,
And
okay.
I think that's important. I think that's important, and I think that just having the conversation is nice and all, but these sorts of things, like, and the decisions that people make based off of what they believe, and uh, the conversations that they have affect other people's lives, right? So
Hmm.
that's where, as like an activist, that's where I come into being like, well, I think there's active harm in this area. I don't think there's harm in this other particular area. Like, where's the conversation at, and where do we go from there?
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So like, it needs some sort of resolve.
Yeah, because
When
people are going to
these.
have conflicts, right? That's just kind of like
Yeah,
who we are, and we
sure.
haven't found a way around this yet. So,
Yeah. How do we get that resolve? What do we do?
well, I think one way is policy.
I guess I meant conversation wise. So we have
Oh,
this
conversation
conflict.
wise, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
should have specified.
No, you're good.
Like
I
that
just went off
topic
the deep
comes
end there.
up. No, no worries, no worries. So we got like that. The topic of harm comes up. And
Sure.
like two people drastically different values.
Hmm.
Yeah. Where do we go in the conversation from there? Do we end it? Does it turn
Mm,
into a full blown argument? Do people start screaming? Where do we
I
go?
would hope not. I hope that's not the first place people go. Um, um, I think when we get to the aspect of harm, we're talking about something that we can, um, if not, like, I can't tell if you have a headache, right? for an example.
Sure.
You would have to tell me. Or we'd have to like have an MRI scanner for every person on the planet, which is not feasible, right? So,
Probably don't want to be
but
doing that every time you have a headache either. Yeah. But anyways, go on.
now, can you imagine? Can you imagine like being on your work site and being like, "Okay, I've got a headache. Let me go to the MRI machine just to show you."
I think I'd be glowing by the end of the year.
Right, exactly. Um, so so to some degree, we take people at their word, right? I've got a headache. My arm hurts.
Sure.
Uh, I like this particular sports team. Blah 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 blah. We can go on with it, right?
Hmm.
I actually forgot the original question.
So what I was saying was,
I
you're
could have just gone on with examples for 5 minutes, but I'm glad you're going to stop me.
you stopped yourself. I didn't stop you. I would have let you
I did.
go. Um, so you said that we need a while ago. You said we need resolve, and
Yeah.
the topic of harm enters the conversation. And I was wondering where we go with the conversation if that topic
Mm,
uh, comes to the surface.
like if we meet like a conflict.
Yeah, yeah. Let's say one person
Sure.
wants this particular policy, and
Sure.
yeah, and the other person wants this particular policy. Harm could be occurring if it's this policy.
Yeah.
Where do we go from there? How do we talk about it?
So science is definitely one way that we can talk about harm. Um, we can also talk about the emotional side of harm, like people's personal experience or perceived um experience of like a threat or a harm. Excuse me, which I'm not going to deny each individual person, of course. But then we can also look at like systemic issues, like just for a separate example, I would say that we still have some degree, maybe not as bad as back in the past, but definitely still harmful, in my opinion, would be like systemic racism, right? I think there's definitely some residual of that going on, and we can still measure it.
Mm,
Um,
okay,
all of this stuff is kind of like woven into like what's going on in society as a whole, and I think there's ways that we can measure it.
okay. So it would
So
be kind of
that's one way we can go about it.
like presenting the information to the person. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that's definitely one attempt we can make.
Okay. What's the alternatives?
Uh, one alternative we can go with is emotional appeal.
Okay.
But then if you go just straight with just straight emotional versus emotional appeal, you just kind of hit a brick wall, right, with each other. It's like just like
Maybe.
bashing your forehead into each other and hoping like one wins out against the other. Um, but depending on how persuasive one's argument can be, um, you might be able to convince the other person or not, or maybe you just have a harder forehead.
Okay. Any other
just to,
alternatives?
just to finish the just to finish the analogy there. um, I don't know. I'm curious. Do you think there's another alternative that we can go with?
Maybe. Yeah, I
Maybe.
think so. We got like how I kind of presented this was like policy versus policy. This person believes
Mm,
that this policy should take place. The person
yeah.
believes that this policy should take place. I
Sure.
think what I would do is I would ask them why they would be in favor of that policy and
Sure.
learn, everything there is to know about why they hold that position. And,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
about discovering their value
yeah,
system, right?
discovering that and then seeing if whatever value they might have, upholding that, if that is the best strategy to um, achieve that value, that underlying need,
Hmm.
or if there could be an alternative strategy other than policy X. If, maybe there's explore some alternatives. Would this
Hmm.
policy also achieve that? that's probably the route I would prefer. Is it the most effective? I don't know. I tend to think so, but what are your thoughts?
Um, so how do I put this? So when we have each individual person, like especially if we have a conflict, right? So we've got two separate like value statements, um, and we have to come to some sort of conclusion or resolution to this conflict, right? At least that's the goal, I presume.
Well,
Um,
I mean, your goal might be just to persuade the other person to your side. My goal might be
yeah,
different, but
right. Also depending on context, but let's just go
mhm,
with that one, right? So we gotta, ideally we would start with an exploration of what people value, and then we'd ask why do people value this, right?
mhm,
Um, and then we could go through rationalizing like what policies would alleviate the stress, the uh, the suffering, the discomfort, whatever. Uh,
mhm.
basically, what actions can we take to? I lost for it. What actions can we take to uh, achieve the goals that we're looking for? And then once we figure that out, we end up like putting against these two value systems against each other with all of this other like baggage all of a sudden with it, right? But we didn't get to the core issue a lot of the time. Does that make sense? I
I
kind
think
of
so.
pieced two I kind of pieced two ideas together a little bit with duct tape maybe, but
That's okay. Yeah. So I think what you're saying is it's important to get to the core issue, if I'm understanding you correctly.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I
we
believe
got to
I
get to the
picked you
core
up.
issue most of the like first and foremost, but that's not always possible in short conversations. I'm glad that this is a bit of a longer one so we can talk not necessarily about what I think the issue is, like kind of like what's going on, but
Okay. Yeah, I think we have a very similar communication style, and I like your style. You know, well, I would because I like my own style. So
right,
I'm complimenting
we have
myself and you at the same time, but I'm really just trying to compliment you because
right.
I think from what you've told me, obviously I haven't witnessed these conversations, but from what you've told me, I think that you have a very good communication style, and I'm very much a fan of how you go about it if you want to get to that core issue.
And I think I have my own strategies for I think works so far in that regard, and definitely strategies that I've not been so successful in that I'm still reworking. Right?
Sure. Is there anything you wanted to talk?
I'm sure you feel the same way in some regards. So
I think so. Yeah. I mean, maybe run that
yeah.
by me one more time to make sure, but
Oh, I think what I meant to say was like I think we're both still like developing like our communication style and strategies of how we handle all these conversations and what the best course of action is. Right?
yeah, for sure. I don't think I'll
I
ever
may
be
be a
done.
little bit more yeah, well, probably not, but I would hope not. I still, plan on continuing to grow and adjust myself as time goes on, right? But
Yeah.
I think overall, I've come to a conclusion that I believe is correct and willing to be proven wrong, but I think that I've got a good, strong handle of what's going on. I may not be able to communicate it very well all the time, but, this is my position.
Yeah. I'd like to recommend actually two books to you that are about
Sure.
communication.
Yeah,
One of
yeah.
them is Super Communicators, and the
Super
other,
communicator.
yep,
Okay.
I can send you these later too. And the other one
Yeah.
is
Sure.
Crucial Conversations. And both of them kind of echo a lot of the things that you've told me today. And I think you'd enjoy them.
Sure. Yeah, if you wanna send me those 2 books later on or,
Yeah,
I would at
absolutely.
least give them a look, read the summary,
Sure.
see where it goes. I get a couple free books a month, so
There you go.
yeah.
All right. And anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't discussed so far, or anything that I missed?
No, nothing that I was just kind of along for the ride. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
take it in stride. Um, it's your show. It was your interview. I was just kind of going with the flow.
Cool.
I didn't have any particular way I had this like plan on going. You know what I mean?
Of course. Of course. Um, yeah. I mean, any questions? If you have any questions, now could be a time. We could invite other people on stage if you'd want. We don't have to do that though.
Yeah, I don't mind if we want to get some people up to talk. However, I would like to take a quick bathroom break if that is
Yeah,
possible.
that's perfectly fine.
Cool. I shall be right back, and then we can take some calls or take some audience members if you'd like.
Okay. I'll
I say
entertain.
calls because I'm used to like a Twitch like setting like on my own
Gotcha.
end. So
Everybody knows what you mean if you say that. No worries.
yeah, I'm sure they do. Cool. I'll be right back.
All right. I'll entertain the masses. Oh, that breaks my stream a little bit. That's okay.
Doesn't
I'll
it? I'm
take.
sorry, I didn't mean to break your
It's
stream.
it's okay. It's okay. I'll fix it real quick. What do I do? Let's do this one. Oh, all fixed. Cool. Okay. Hey, Elliot, if you're still watching, it's in Discord, and I know you don't use Discord, so I apologize. But yeah. I mean, the link technically is in there, but you know, I know you don't use Discord. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but that's where I'm having it. So I apologize. I apologize, man. I love you though. I love you. Love you, Elliot. But yeah, it just is what it is. Sorry. I can give you the link, but it's in Discord, Elliot. Sorry, I'm talking to someone in YouTube comments. Check out the video with Elliot though on my channel. That's a good conversation. It was a good conversation. It's in the description, Elliot. All right. I don't know what to talk about while she's on a bathroom break. Yeah, I really don't have anything to entertain you fellows with. Gonna sit here for a moment. Favorite song? Oh, I made this song with an AI program. Well, did I really make it? Probably not. But it turned out really cool. It was like that's a legit could play that on a radio station, and it'd be pretty cool. That's my favorite song at the moment. Good song. Genre. It was the chorus was like this electro 80s. No, not electro. It was like chorus was like an 80s singer kind of. It sounded like that, kind of like a 80s singer feel to it. And the rest was like this rap, but not like gangster rap. It was more like a Mike Shinoda kind of I don't know. It just worked. I liked it. And it was kind of like the instrumental was a little bit of a guitar riff, like late 80s spoken word rap. No, no, not necessarily. More like early 2000s new metal type rap, but like a little bit more styled rather than direct, intense kind of. I don't know. It was pretty cool. I can send it to you if you want. Um, yeah, it was in Suno. Yeah, Suno. That's a pretty cool program. Yeah, I'll send it to you later, V. I guess I'll open up the chat. Will that break anything? It will a little bit.
Hopefully not. I just got back.
Oh, hey. Yep, it's all good.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, so
It doesn't break
we
your
will.
stream too hard.
No, 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 no. It's all good. It's no worries. I mean, that was kind of just a little bit of a downtime, and I was just talking about music apparently, and
Oh, there you
so
go.
I guess we can.
You found something to fill the time, right?
Yeah, I did find something. All right, we'll bring up some
Sure.
hobo.
I don't mind doing about 30 minutes of talking.
Sounds good. And when I say some hobo, I literally mean that's his username. I'm not just saying we'll bring up some hobo because that'd be really kind of mean. I always feel weird
Yeah.
saying his username.
Might be, right?
Yeah,
Hello.
gamer name is weird on channels like this. Uh, but in video games, it works just fine.
Sure. I actually can't see. Can you say your name real quick? Because I only see an S and dots.
Oh, some hobo's my name, but my real name is Jonathan.
Okay. Do you mind if I call you Jonathan then?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. What you got?
Uh, well, I definitely appreciate all the info. I learned stuff. Um, one thing I heard, a lot of times in discussions with this stuff, I hear the terms equality, and sometimes
Yeah.
when I hear equality, I wonder if freedom might be a better word because,
Freedom.
oh yeah, because I guess I see some trans rights I see more as freedom than equality because getting to uh, take certain medication or get a surgery, that just seems like freedom to me. Like because obviously the government may not be allowing them. I don't fully understand the laws with all this stuff,
Sure.
but I definitely see that as a freedom thing. I have a hard time seeing it as equality because, um, well, like when I think of equality, I think of like equal pay. It's like a man might be getting paid more so than a woman. So I see where that's equality. Um, I guess what I'm
Okay.
trying to say is, I guess, do you see trans rights as, and I guess I'll say this, with trans rights, I do see some as equality. For instance, if someone's not getting a job because they're trans, then that's definitely an equality. Well, that's both equality and freedom. But um, so I was
I
wondering,
would agree.
yeah. Um, so I was wondering, do you still see uh, somebody not be able to get a surgery because of the law as equality, or do you still see it as freedom?
So from what when I'm talking about the subject, I'm talking about equality, specific, right? So when it comes to like medical services, like I said a little earlier in the talk, that I don't think that the medical system in this country, at least the United States, is it's lacking in a lot of ways, I should say. So I think there's a lot of issues that need to be fixed. But being that as it may be, what I'm worried about and fighting for is equality under the law. So like if someone, like, let's just say, you know, born as male, identifies as male, cisgender person qualifies for such surgery, I worry about discrimination against a trans person wanting the same surgery or needing the same surgery, whether it's for mental health issues or for physical ailments that they may be suffering. Does that make sense? When it comes to freedom, I think I know what you're saying. And I think certain freedoms are are justified and some aren't. It kind of depends what you're talking about.
Yeah, I guess I did get a little bit lost. So, are we just talking about trans surgeries, or are we talking about other types of surgeries as well?
Oh, I was just making the comparison to tie in the idea of equality. Because you know, I mean, I could bring up studies and stuff like that, but you know, the idea loosely is that these surgeries overwhelmingly help trans people and their dysphoria and to help them feel more comfortable in their bodies and to feel better equipped to handle daily life. You know,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I
Sweet. I guess I got another question then. Um,
sure.
do How does somebody know if they are another gender than what they're born? How do they know?
Mm. So the main issue would be what the main sorry, excuse me, the brain state, the mind state of what each individual is at the time, and gender and sex are not the same, but they're intertwined, which is why we have the words cis and transgender to refer to sex as opposed to like the brain state of an individual person, right? So
Yeah.
I know for me, it's as simple as stating like someone is a trans woman. It's as easy of a thing to accept as saying that someone's a baseball fan to me.
Okay. Sweet.
If that
Thank you
makes
very
sense.
much.
And we can always go deeper in that if you are willing for the conversation. But yes, I appreciate you being up here.
I appreciate being up here. Okay. Yeah. If you want to go deeper, I guess one thing that affects my view on
Hmm.
on on trans is when I was like late teens, early 20s, up to like when I was 25, I had a lot of doubts on whether I was attractive or not. And
Sure.
I saw myself as like more feminine as a guy. And I saw, when I was young, I saw myself as very vulnerable. So that definitely affects my view of it now because I'm afraid of, I hear of people who felt like they were another gender and then later realized they didn't want to make that change.
Sure.
And so it always makes me think of how vulnerable I was when I was young. Um, that's honestly my biggest concern with trans uh, surgeries.
Sure.
Uh, that being said, like I'm okay with people dressing however they want, acting however they want. Um,
Right. Um, hopefully this alleviates your stress about it a little bit as when it comes to surgeries, like it is a huge grueling process to even go through any of these things. It's not just like as some people would want to like point it out to be would be it's not like you just come in to a doctor's office, be like, I feel this way right now today, and then the next day you're going and getting surgery. That's absolutely not how it happens, right? And also, hopefully this also puts you at ease, like in terms of other people, not just yourself, but like transgender, gender affirming care surgeries have a really like low regret rate, less than most other common surgeries that we do today for other people. Mm. So,
oh, sweet. Can you
there's mhm.
can you give me a ballpark of what the regret rate is? Is it less than 10%?
Regret rate for I think it's GSI is under it's definitely under 2%, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, oh, extremely low. Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
it's extremely low.
Sweet. Well, thank you
So,
very much
um
for your time.
yeah, if you have yeah, of course, if you have any other questions, you feel free to DM me and we can talk about it.
All right. Have a good rest of your evening.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Right.
Well, that's a good chat. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I mean, if it I'm kind of happy if it just doesn't go off the rails at this point.
Right. I mean, pretty likely to, in my opinion, at some point, right?
Hey, Kitnel.
Hi, V.
Hey, Pierce.
Hey, what's up,
Also,
man?
thank you, Pierce, once again for welcoming me back. Kitnel, I got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Um, so you're familiar with the podcast, The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. It's been one of the more contemporary sort of. I'm an ally, for what it's worth. I'm as far as it's concerned. But I find it
Okay.
interesting that there's been a lot of fear mongering about gender nonconformity since the mid 2010s. What I'm curious about, as far as your perspective is concerned, is are we able to get back to a place where we think that gender nonconformity is, well, it's a little harsh to say, but like not something to be hysterically afraid about. Like, there's always been people who've been gender nonconforming. There's always been people who the puberty blockers have been a factor since the 1980s. There's been
Yeah.
lots of people who've been gender nonconforming. Um, I feel personally, as far as my observations concerned, that this anti-transgender um, facade has been mostly hysterical. Do you think we can get back to that point? If so, how? And if not, counter this.
So I think that
JK
with the
Rowling.
way, hmm?
Go ahead.
Oh, I think with the way that political discourse is going right now, that we're gonna be quite a ways off from gender nonconforming people being like more normalized and integrated in society, especially considering everything that's been happening in even the last just 2 weeks, the last couple of months, given Trump's victory in this election, the last election cycle. Like, I think it's going to be hard to come back and make it not weird for people, to put it in lighter terms, I guess. Um, I think it's going to be an uphill battle. Is my short answer.
Okay, so what I would ask though is to be
Hmm.
honest, as far as I'm concerned, this is not dissimilar to like the satanic panic of the 1980s. Like again,
Hmm.
this is a public hysteria. This idea that like people who are gender nonconforming or gay or whatever are like infiltrating our systems and like teaching the kids to be a certain way. It's like it's complete nonsense, but it kind of
Yeah,
permeates a lot of our
yeah.
society. Very
Yeah, I
difficult
think a
to
lot of
have.
it is definitely very similar to like satanic panics type of rhetoric and stuff. Um, I personally think that it's ridiculous and isn't borne out in the effects of like how these communities operate or are trying to, fight for equality. I don't think that the mass hysteria that's going on with this sort of topic is warranted.
Okay, so I guess I should ask, do you agree that it's a bit of a mass hysteria? Because it kind of, at
Um,
least in my estimation, feels like one. Like it's a
if
bit bizarre. It's strange to see. It seems like it's coming out of almost nowhere.
Yeah, I think that some I agree with you in such a way that I think it is hysteria and that it's unwarranted. I would just normally avoid that sort of term if I'm trying to meet someone like where they're at, right? But I do
Well,
think
sure.
I do think that the position is unwarranted and not fully rational.
I
So
love
do
that
you
you
think
just
that
said
there's a
that, by the
lot?
way. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
actually, Pierce, I'd be curious to know why would you say
Yeah,
that?
I'm curious now too.
I heard you, no, I heard you say, meet them where they're at, and that's a term that I would never use, like if I was talking with someone. And I just wanted to applaud that because I think that's really important. I think if we go with, loaded guns, guns blazing, and just say this is a mass hysteria and you're a part of it, I think the conversation is over at that point. I don't think that they're going to listen to a word you say after that. So I just want to say, like, I think you're spot on with that.
I think when we're talking about interpersonal like connection with other people, like when it's more like one-on-one or maybe within a family unit, I think that's definitely not very helpful in most
Completely
cases.
agree.
Um, once trust has broken down and the conversation's no longer worth having, I think at that point personal attacks start coming out, and some of the time it might be warranted. So
Yeah, but it's not because they're yeah. Well, I mean I just it's interesting how many people have been trying to push this narrative. I say push this narrative. That's this is an unfair way of putting it. There's a fear. This is an inherent fear response of people behaving ways that they are not familiar with, and it'd be interesting to know how to reach out to those people because I don't think that people, as has been said in other cases of the rainbow, shall we say, are necessarily causing all the problems of society, and yet there's been an increasing effort to legally crack down on nonconformity. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's useful. I don't think that it is actually doing any good, and I don't think that this is the new phenomenon that it's being portrayed to be. I don't think that's fair or reasonable. I feel like this is a minority of people. I don't particularly care about social issues personally, but I do care about telling people that they're not people, which is increasingly where this seems to be going. So I'd like, I don't know. I'll leave this as my final question. What is the path forward to make sure that people who are gender nonconforming can feel safe in the place that they live, in your estimation?
Mm. Mm. Whereas within your question, we're assuming that they're already not safe.
I would argue they're not safe, and in
Okay,
some,
yeah,
well, it depends on where you live, but in many cases, a lot
yeah.
of people are not safe.
I think that's a very hard question to answer from especially one person who lives in a small portion of the world. I would say that it depends on what you're willing to tolerate. It depends what you're willing not to tolerate. It depends on what your boundaries are and whether or not you are feeling comfortable to stand up for what you think is right, or if you feel comfortable to express yourself in the given, you know, climate that you find yourself in. Like it really, really depends. Um, I would say just as a general note that you know, I would say to try to keep your head up given the way society is right now, and you know, people are going to keep going strong. That's all
That's
I can
fair
really say, I
enough.
think.
Thanks, folks. Pierce, once again, take care.
You too. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you
Kitnel,
for
up.
coming up.
lovely guest. Lovely guest.
Oh, thank you.
All right, I think we got Leaf and Kate. I know you said like 30 minutes, about 20 minutes ago. That leaves 5
Yeah.
minutes for
Um,
each of them.
Sure. Yeah. Absolute latest, depending on how the conversations go. 10 o'clock for me, I think.
Okay, 10 will be a hard cutoff. Cool.
Yeah.
Hello.
10 hard cutoff, but hello.
Hello, Leaf.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
Good so far. I'm
Yeah,
enjoying
I
the
think
night.
this was
hope-
pretty successful so far.
I think it's been
Yeah.
great. I'll jump right into it because I only got 5 to 10 minutes. I
About
want to
5
be
minutes, yeah.
respectful. Cool. I'll go quick then. So I have a
Sure.
couple, 2 or 3-ish questions for both of you. Same question for both. My
Sure.
first question is, when it comes to communication in general, what do you think the difference is when it's a one-on-one conversation versus a one-on-one conversation with an audience? And I mean specifically, like, would you take a different strategy? And how do you think that's going to, like, how the conversation will impact things? So I don't know, Kitnel, you can answer first if you like.
Put me on the spot, will you?
Right?
Sure. I think your strategy kind of just changes whether we want it to or not, depending on, whether we're talking about in an individual versus like a group set of people, right? I think that's just kind of how we operate, and I think that's fine. It kind of just comes down to like what is more effective or not, and I think that's where it kind of breaks down a little bit. Does that make sense? Then I guess Pierce can answer.
Yeah, I think so. Pierce?
Yeah, so what I do doesn't really change from like a one-on-one unwitnessed conversation to one that has an audience. And the reason it doesn't really change for me is because a lot of times my goal isn't necessarily to change anyone's mind. I used to have that goal. And maybe in some niche circumstances, I do fall into that category. But most of the time, I've switched my goal from that to hopefully myself learning how to have the best conversations, and then trying to influence others to have the best possible conversations they can for themselves, without me being present. And I think that's how we grow as a people. And in I guess in a roundabout way, I think that's how minds can change as well. I think if we have more constructive conversations, eventually minds will change and hopefully come closer to what is true and good, and fits fits the mold for fits the is a good strategy to fit all of our needs in the end. So it doesn't really change for me. Long answer short.
I know,
Yeah.
great.
May I give just a slight answer to that?
Yeah.
Just maybe a different perspective is I think people's lives are changing and are affected now, which is why I fight for what I do. I do not have necessarily a disagreement that I think if we have the conversation, people's minds will change, but people's lives are affected now, which is why I make the choices and decisions that I do.
Yeah,
I ain't mad
I
at
definitely
that.
think that, like, depending on if you're like having a one-on-one conversation versus a conversation in front of a group or like on a platform, like I think that does and should impact the strategy. Like, and I think it does just organically, because like if I'm talking to a stranger versus talking to like my uncle about something that we disagree with, like religion, for example, then that conversation is going to go very differently with someone that I don't really know versus someone I care about. I guess my second question, and then I'll jump back down because I'm hoping Kate will change her mind and come up, is are there some ideas that are like harmful and should not be platformed, or should not be platformed uncritically in the latter type of conversation where there's an audience?
Pierce, you want to go first on that one, or you want me to go?
You can go first if you like.
Right. Well, so I take a more harder stance of what I think is harmful, right? So I think, and I'm not necessarily opposed to platforming someone who has a different idea or a different stance than me. However, I think that giving the proper pushback is more than proper and fair. And I don't think just giving someone a free pass is the right way to go. But Pierce will probably most likely have a different stance than I do there.
Yeah, it's I can see why people would be very, very upset for someone platforming someone and not providing a pushback. I totally understand that. That is something that I totally get, because people don't want those ideas, harmful ideas, to be a commonplace, and they don't want those ideas spread. And and if those ideas spread, more harm occurs. I totally understand that. I totally get that. I don't want people to be harmed. I want to make that really clear, that I'm totally against that. With that being said, if I were to platform someone with harmful views and I didn't provide pushback, it would be to improve their communication skills so they can go out in the world or online, online world, and have these conversations with the tools that I am hopefully giving them, and hopefully they are receiving those tools. And that in turn, when they have these tools, and the audience also can pick up those tools, you get a tool, everybody gets a tool. And
Thanks, Oprah.
Sorry, broke my train of thought.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So I would be trying to give them these communication tools so they can go out in this world, have these conversations, and hopefully, if there's harmful views that they are holding, through using these tools, these conversational tools, that they no longer hold those harmful views. That and then, because they have these conversation tools, they might be activists for the opposite stance that they originally had. Or maybe through these conversational tools, they are able to inadvertently convince people that out of these harmful views, if they both had the same harmful view. I think the tools that I provide, I like to think that they don't, they can't really be used in a propaganda, negative, spreading false shit sense. I mean, maybe they can, but I like to think that having a greater understanding, exploring, underlying reasoning and needs, I think that's can only ever be a good thing.
So I guess I was hoping Kate would put her hand back up and then I'd jump down, but she hasn't yet. And she said that she didn't want to come up. So I will follow up with that. I feel like there's a difference between someone employing critical thinking and avoiding fallacious reasoning and being skeptical versus how someone communicates ideas or how someone interprets other people's words. Like if someone's just not understanding what's being said and talking past each other, yeah, we need to fix the communication and improve their communication skills. But if you have someone who's like a dishonest interlocutor, like someone that's supporting the smoking industry and was running interference, suggesting that, well, there's actually a lot of disagreement on whether or not smoking causes cancer, and a lot of people who smoke actually feel better and are more healthy than the people who don't. So the science isn't settled yet. So we really shouldn't jump around passing laws and limiting access to smoking and limiting access to smoking advertisements to children and stuff. And we know that the smoking industry had people that were, excellent communicators, but were doing a very good job of obfuscating the conversation for decades until eventually the science became irrefutable. And now we have more laws limiting access to smoking and limiting access to smoking advertisements. Because if you have one person who's a smoking advocate and one scientist on the stage saying, oh, smoking is bad, actually, that's not neutral or unbiased. That's actually extremely unbiased. It's actually favoring the person who's pro smoking. What you should have is 100 scientists on one side saying, yeah, smoking is bad for you based on all this information and data, versus the one smoking advocate in order to make it like remotely accurate to the state of the conversation. So if you are teaching the smoking advocate to have better communication skills, or if you bring a smoking advocate onto a platform and you apply your strategy, which I think, like, you know, asking questions and like street epistemology in general and the various related strategies or techniques are great tools to have in your belt, and they're great where they're relevant. But if you apply that to someone who is just there to like spread their propaganda, and then you do that and then you don't push back and be like, oh, by the way, you know, every single reputable scientific journal says that smoking causes cancer. So like what they said is factually not supported by any of the mainstream science and the scientific consensus. If you don't say that at some point, then, you know, your technique might not be useful in platforming the bad ideas, but your actions in using the technique ended up platforming the bad ideas. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I'm trying to digest your analogy here. So we have like this smoking advocate, and say I have them on my live stream, and they're advocating for smoking. They obviously have this bias. Let's say they're selling cigarettes, selling tobacco, right? Okay.
Or hired by the tobacco lobby.
Yeah. So money is changing hands somehow. They have this bias. They know that tobacco is going to kill people. But they're saying that it's not. And I'm giving them these communication tools. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I guess like if I did bring up someone who had such a bias and was you know, dishonestly you know, not honest about their position, right? I think they would have to be dishonest about stuff under either their position as a whole or their underlying reasons. They'd have to be dishonest about. And I do think that
Right.
kind of, in a sense, a lot of people, when you ask them what their underlying reasons are, I don't think they're dishonest. I don't think they're lying. A lot of people aren't vulnerable enough to say what their initial reason is. But yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know that if I knew this person had this this bias, you know, money was exchanging hands, they weren't going to be honest. I don't think I would bring them up.
And can I just say, like in my analogy, obviously, like this lobbyist is making money off of it, but it could be the case that that was unclear and might not come out for years because of like investigative journalism, or it could be that this person, it's become their pet project and they are honestly convinced that like they like smoking and they think that like the anti-smoking crowd is like overreaching, and so they've just become like an advocate for smoking completely organically. So they might not be dishonest. Obviously, the tactics they would use would be dishonest because they'd be, you know, disregarding studies and relying on anecdotes and stuff like that. But they might be like completely honest in their opinion, but they're just like, you know, victims of, I don't want to say the conspiracy, but victims of propaganda and then regurgitating it because they've just decided for whatever reason that they identify with the pro-smoking crowd. But even then, like, you know, I think it's good to have a certain amount of discernment if you have a platform to say like, hey, whether this person is dishonest or this person is evil, if they're advocating for something that's harmful, like smoking, and they're doing so using dishonest tactics, then like, unless like sitting down with them either in public or in private and talking about critical thinking and talking about being open-minded and talking about not falling to fallacies and how to be skeptical is brilliant. But teaching them how to be a better communicator, how to better like ask people questions and how to seek to understand people only to like convince them of things, I think it's just equipping them to do more harm. And I don't know if either of you have anything to add to that. I'll probably jump down after this because I had about 2 questions and it's turned into 5.
I have some thoughts, Pierce.
Sure, go ahead.
Mind? So I think that at least where it is where it concerns you, Pierce, is I think that learning to communicate one's ideas is important. My experience within what I do is that a lot of people are they either use communication style and rhetoric to just deceive and lie about what they're talking about, or
Mhm.
or they just or like you said, they just don't know how to communicate what they're saying or trying to say, and then the conversation becomes muddied. Neither I think is necessarily good. One we can improve upon, and the other someone's actively being dishonest, right?
Right.
Which is one of the reasons why I try to include scientific inquiry, logic, reason into what I believe. But I think that's all I wanted to add, at least for now.
Sure. Only thing that I would add is like in this hypothetical scenario, the smoking example, if this person were to come to this belief organically and they truly believed it, like they believed that
Mm.
smoking was harmless. I think if I do equip them with these tools to explore what these other people thought, right? Why how they came to their conclusions. Maybe their conversation partners would bounce back the same questions. I get that a lot when I'm talking with people. They'll ask me the exact same questions back, which is awesome. I love that. And I think they'd probably come to the conclusion that they were mistaken, or at least eventually. I mean, after one conversation, probably not. If they're this advocate who's doing this quite frequently, I think they'd probably come to that conclusion. And perhaps all the other smoking activists out there that were watching, maybe they pick up the tools, start using those tools in the conversation, and they may come to the same conclusion that they were mistaken. And I think that's the part that's really valuable for me.
Yeah, I don't see how like the communication skills and how to engage with others is going to help them to better process the information in their own minds. I think that there's a difference between someone's own how they're processing the information, whether or not they're falling victim to motivated reasoning or not, versus how they communicate with others. I think there's a relation between those two skill sets, but they are different skill sets. And if the problem is that someone is guilty of motivated reasoning and has picked their conclusion and is dedicated to it and is treating it dogmatically, then that would need to be challenged. And that approach to like epistemology would need to be challenged, not the communication, because the communication isn't what the issue is at that point. The issue is that they're, like I said, disregarding studies or weighing their anecdotes higher than is appropriate, or like they're just not interested in truth. They're just they avoid questions and just come back with like anything rhetorically to defend their point of view. And like I agree that if they took a more street epistemology approach and said, okay, well, why do you believe that? What makes you believe that? That would help the conversation with the person they're talking to. But those ideas and that evidence and that information penetrating into their minds, I think that's a separate issue than their communication style. But I'm sure we'll talk more about that in the future. And I appreciate you both. And Kitnel, great show tonight. I'll hop into the audience and let you guys do your closing.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I agree. I think it was a good show, Pierce. What do you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I think it went very well. It was really I enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, I enjoyed the talk. I enjoyed the audience participation. I enjoyed all of it, I think.
Yeah, me too. Cool.
All right. Do you have a YouTube outro that you also use, or do we just sign off or say our goodbyes, or what you got?
I do have a YouTube outro, but I also want
right,
to plug the after show chat. I know you'll probably get going. I will hang out there for a little bit.
Oh.
It's already going. I got my second account, and it's after show chat. So if you just scroll on the sidebar a little bit down, all you fellows who are in the audience, go join over there, and we can talk amongst ourselves. And it won't be streamed or anything, so you don't have to worry about that.
Don't have to worry
Yeah.
about the public backlash.
What? Yeah, whatever it might be.
Whatever
But,
it might be.
yeah, that's all I got.
Well,
It was nice
awesome.
talking
Well,
to.
thanks for having me. Nice. I think it was a good talk.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for coming up. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hopefully we get to talk again. I would very much
Yep.
enjoy that.
Yep, I hope so in the future at some point.
All right.
All right,
That's
bye.
all I got. Take care.